When Solomon had the chance to ask God for anything, he didn't do what most of us would have done. He didn't say, "Lord, make me the richest man alive." He didn't say, "Give me the power to conquer nations." He said, "Give me wisdom." And here's what blows my mind. God said, "Because you asked for wisdom and not riches, I'll give you both." Do you see it? Wealth was not the request. It was the reward. Most people live their whole lives chasing after the reward, when the secret is in the request. The reason so many struggle is because they've been trained to pursue the fruit, not the root. But Solomon tapped into the root, and the fruit came automatically. He knew something most people never learn. Wealth is not first financial, it's foundational. And that foundation is wisdom. That means the wealth you desire is not waiting for your next paycheck, your next business deal, or your next big break. It's waiting for you to ask the right question. It's waiting for you to pursue the right thing. If wisdom is the principal thing, then every other thing, including wealth, lines up in order once wisdom is in place. Most people spend their entire lives running after money like it's some kind of finish line, but the Solomon Code flips that script. Money was never designed to be chased. It was designed to chase. Think about it. When Solomon operated in wisdom, he didn't have to go knocking on doors begging for opportunities. Kings, queens, and rulers from every corner of the earth came to him. They didn't just come with questions, they came with camels loaded with treasure, gold, and riches. Why? Because wealth is attracted to wisdom, the way gravity pulls everything downward. If you've been wondering why money seems to slip away, maybe it's because you've been chasing the wrong thing. You don't need to run after money, you need to become the kind of person money runs after. When wisdom sits on the throne of your mind, wealth bows at your feet. Money respects wisdom, and when you walk in it, wealth has no choice but to come find you. See, the world will tell you to grind harder, hustle longer, sacrifice your health, your family, even your peace, just to make a little more money. But here's the truth: grinding without wisdom is like pouring water into a bucket full of holes. You'll work yourself into the ground and still end up empty. Solomon shows us a different picture. Wisdom doesn't just give you more work, it gives you better work. Wisdom creates strategies that multiply your effort. So what takes others 10 years can take you 1. That's why some people can be in the same business, same city, same opportunity, and one barely survives while the other thrives. It's not the hustle that makes the difference. It's the wisdom. Hard work without wisdom leads to burnout. But wisdom turns hard work into smart work, and smart work into multiplied wealth. When wisdom enters the equation, you stop striving and start thriving. Most people read the book of Proverbs like it's a collection of nice little sayings, but what they don't realize is Solomon left behind the greatest wealth manual ever written. Every verse is a code. When he said, "The hand of the diligent shall rule, but the slothful shall be under tribute," he wasn't just talking about being lazy. He was revealing a financial law. Diligence creates dominion. Laziness creates debt. When he said, "A generous person will prosper," that wasn't a motivational quote. That was an economic system built into the universe. The Proverbs are not poetry. They are prosperity principles. They teach integrity because dishonesty destroys wealth. They teach vision because without vision your money perishes. They teach generosity because giving unlocks receiving. And when you begin to read Proverbs not as old wisdom, but as timeless wealth strategies, you stop seeing it as a religious book and start seeing it as a financial blueprint from the richest man who ever lived. Wealth without wisdom is like building a mansion on sand. It looks impressive for a moment, but the first storm takes it down. That's why lottery winners can get millions and be broke in 5 years, while someone with wisdom can start with nothing and build an empire that lasts generations. Solomon's life proves that sustainability doesn't come from the amount of money you have. It comes from the wisdom you apply. Wisdom knows how to preserve, multiply, and manage. Wisdom teaches you when to plant, when to harvest, when to give, and when to hold. Wealth that comes without wisdom is fleeting, but wealth that's rooted in wisdom endures. It doesn't just pay your bills. It outlives you, it funds your children, your children's children, and it continues to expand long after you're gone. That's the difference between riches that fade and legacy wealth that remains. Money doesn't just look for hands to fill. It looks for hearts and minds it can trust. That's why wisdom is so powerful, because wisdom shapes your character, and character is the real currency. See, if wealth comes to someone without character, it becomes a curse instead of a blessing. That's why you see people with fame, fortune, and influence destroy themselves, because their money grew faster than their maturity. But when wisdom builds your character, wealth recognizes you as safe storage. It knows you won't waste it, you won't worship it, and you won't let it destroy you. Character is what turns money into mission, riches into responsibility, and success into significance. And when wisdom makes you the kind of person that money can trust, you don't have to beg for wealth. It shows up and stays because it knows you won't squander it, you'll steward it. Generosity is one of the most misunderstood wealth codes in the entire Bible. People think when they give, they're losing something. They think when they release money, it's subtraction. But that's not how God's economy works. In the Solomon Code, giving is not subtraction. It's multiplication. Solomon said, "One person gives freely, yet gains even more. Another withholds unduly, but comes to poverty." That flips everything the world teaches us about money. The world says, hold on to what you have, because if you let it go, you'll run out. But wisdom says, the more you let it flow, the more it grows. Wealth is not designed to be a pond that sits still and stagnates. It's designed to be a river that flows through you. The tighter you try to grip it, the faster it slips away. The more open your hand, the more God can trust you with increase. Look at Solomon's life. When he built the temple, he gave extravagantly. He didn't cut corners. He didn't say, "Let me find the cheapest way." He gave the best of gold, the finest of wood, the strongest of materials. And when he gave at that level, wealth came back to him at a level no one else had ever seen. Kings brought him treasures not because he begged, but because his generosity opened the door for supernatural reciprocity. That's the principle so many miss when you give. You are not just helping someone else. You are setting in motion a divine law that guarantees your return. Think about a farmer. If he eats all of his seed, he may feel full for a day, but he guarantees his famine tomorrow. But if he plants that seed, it doesn't just return what he gave. It multiplies. He plants one seed, he reaps 30, 60, or 100-fold. The seed didn't leave his life, it just left his hand. And that's the exact same thing generosity does with money. It may leave your bank account, but it's not gone. It's working underground, multiplying, and it will show up again, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. The enemy wants you to believe generosity is dangerous because he knows if you ever catch this principle, you'll never struggle financially again. Fear says, if I give, I'll have less. Faith says, if I give, I'll multiply more. Solomon understood this, which is why he could give without hesitation. His wisdom revealed that money is a tool, not a treasure. When you hold it too tightly, it controls you. When you release it with wisdom, you control it. Here's what's really interesting. The stingy person thinks they're protecting themselves by holding back. But the Bible says that very act of withholding leads to poverty. Why? Because they've cut themselves off from the flow. Wealth is like water. If it doesn't flow, it dries up. But generosity keeps the current moving, and when the current moves, more flows in than flows out. And let's go even deeper. Generosity doesn't only unlock financial increase, it unlocks influence. Solomon's generosity drew leaders from around the world. The Queen of Sheba traveled miles just to witness his wisdom and generosity in action. She came with questions, but she left impressed not only by his answers, but by the abundance and generosity that marked his life. People are attracted to generous people. Generosity multiplies relationships, opportunities, and favor. It magnetizes abundance to your life because people trust and are drawn to someone who operates with an open hand. But here's the key: generosity is not just about money. It's about spirit. Some of you may not feel like you have much to give financially right now, but wisdom says you can be generous with your time, your knowledge, your encouragement, your service. And as you give what you have, you activate the principle. The widow gave 2 mites, the smallest of coins, but it was greater than all the others because she gave it in faith. It's not the size of the gift that multiplies the wealth. It's the size of the heart behind it. Now let me paint a picture for you. Imagine 2 people with the exact same income. One hoards every dollar, afraid to give, convinced that saving alone will make them secure. The other gives freely, blesses others, invests in people, sows into opportunities. 10 years later, the hoarder finds themselves frustrated, barely ahead, still worried about running out. The giver, on the other hand, has multiplied resources, multiplied relationships, and multiplied peace. Why? Because one lived in fear and cut themselves off from God's system of increase, while the other trusted wisdom and opened the door for multiplication. Solomon shows us generosity is not optional, it's essential. You cannot walk in wisdom and ignore giving. Wisdom knows that giving is the fastest way to grow. Generosity trains your heart to trust God more than money. It reminds you that you are not the source, you are the steward. And when God sees He can get it through you, He'll make sure to get more to you. That's why the generous never lack. The generous don't just live in survival, they live in overflow. And here's the greatest secret: generosity is the only thing that makes wealth eternal. You can't take money with you when you die, but you can send it ahead by how you use it now. Every time you give, you're converting temporary paper into eternal impact. You're multiplying your wealth not only in this life, but in the one to come. That's why Solomon could say generosity increases a man, not just financially, but in legacy. So when you understand the Solomon Code, you realize the goal is not to get rich and keep it. It's to get rich and release it. Because the more you release, the more God replenishes. The more you pour out, the more heaven pours in. And when you live by that principle, you'll discover that you can't give the one who created the law of giving. The river never runs dry when the source is unlimited. Vision is the magnet that pulls provision into your life. Solomon didn't just sit around saying, "I want to be rich." He had a vision bigger than himself, building the temple of God. And because that vision was massive, the provision had to be massive. That's what so many people miss. They want wealth, but they don't have a vision that requires it. Why would God release resources into your life if you have nowhere to direct them? Money flows toward purpose, not toward greed. Solomon's temple wasn't just a building, it was a declaration of God's glory. And when he aligned his vision with God's purpose, kings, rulers, and nations began sending the resources to make it happen. That's why some people never see abundance. They're asking for provision without a vision. They're asking for God to fund an empty account instead of a divine assignment. Provision always follows vision. The clearer and bigger your vision, the greater the flow of resources that are drawn to it. If your vision is only to pay bills and get by, you'll only attract enough to survive. But if your vision is to transform lives, build something eternal, and leave a legacy, you'll attract the kind of wealth that outlives you. The Solomon Code teaches us that vision gives direction to wealth. Without vision, money becomes meaningless. It gets wasted, misused, and eventually lost. But when wisdom gives you vision, every dollar has a purpose, every resource has an assignment, and every blessing becomes a building block towards something greater. That's when provision chases you down, because heaven funds what heaven authors. And if your vision is written by wisdom, your provision will always be written by abundance. When Solomon walked in wisdom, he didn't have to go looking for the right people. The right people came looking for him. Kings, rulers, and leaders traveled from across the earth just to sit at his table and hear what he had to say. And here's the part we can't miss. They didn't come empty-handed. They came with gifts, treasures, resources, and opportunities. Why? Because wisdom attracts association, and association multiplies acceleration. The people you surround yourself with determine the level you rise to. When you walk in wisdom, you become magnetic to relationships that pull you higher. Some of you are frustrated because you're trying to build wealth in isolation. But the Solomon Code shows us wealth is relational. Your next level isn't hiding in a lottery ticket or a pay raise. It's hiding in a conversation, in a connection, in a divine relationship. Wisdom draws people who can see what you can't see, who can open doors you can't open, and who can bring resources you don't yet have. That's why the Queen of Sheba didn't just admire Solomon's wealth. She left with a relationship that multiplied influence on both sides. And here's the truth: foolishness repels what wisdom attracts. If you walk without wisdom, the right people avoid you. But if you walk in wisdom, the right people pursue you. That's the difference between begging for a seat at the table and being invited to the table. Solomon didn't chase opportunities. Opportunities chased Solomon because wisdom made him irresistible to people of influence. When wisdom shapes your character, wealth doesn't just come in dollars. It comes in doors, and those doors are opened by people who are drawn to the light of wisdom operating in your life. An idea by itself doesn't make you wealthy. Everybody's got ideas. People sit around all day saying, "One day I'm going to start this business. One day I'm going to write that book. One day I'm going to launch that program." But here's the problem. An idea without wisdom is just a dream, and dreams without wisdom die. Solomon shows us that wisdom is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. Wisdom takes what's in your head and puts it in your hands. Wisdom knows how to turn a concept into a system, and systems are what create sustainable wealth. Think about it. One person has an idea and never moves on it. Another has the same idea, but wisdom teaches them how to structure it, how to organize it, how to position it, and how to deliver it. And that person changes their family's financial destiny. That's the difference. It's not that one person was smarter than the other. It's that one had wisdom guiding their actions. Wealth doesn't come from dreaming, it comes from decoding. You don't just need inspiration, you need instruction. You don't just need creativity, you need clarity. And that clarity comes from wisdom. That's why Solomon could say, "By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established." A house isn't built by an idea, it's built by wisdom. A business isn't scaled by a dream, it's scaled by wisdom. A legacy isn't passed down by good intentions, it's passed down by wisdom. The Solomon Code is proof that wealth is not a mystery, it's a methodology. Wisdom is the engine that transforms thoughts into things, and once you have wisdom, you don't just create income. You create impact, you create influence, and you create inheritance. Wealth stops being a possibility and starts being a predictable outcome of wisdom in action. So here's the bottom line. Wealth is not about luck. It's not about hustle. And it's not even about money itself. Wealth is about wisdom. Solomon didn't become the wealthiest man in history because he chased riches. He became wealthy because he pursued wisdom, and riches chased him. The Solomon Code teaches us that when wisdom sits on the throne of your life, wealth, favor, and opportunity will line up to serve you. Wisdom attracts what hard work alone can't buy. Wisdom sustains what luck can't keep. And wisdom multiplies what talent alone can't produce. If you want unlimited wealth, don't chase the money, chase the wisdom. Because when you find wisdom, you've found the code that unlocks everything else. Wealth isn't the prize. It's the proof that wisdom is working in your life.